whatever I came up with, what I thought was healthier than what it was, which was just talking to you, yogurt, salad, fruit, like Parmesan crisps and things like that. Where I'm going with it is everybody was convinced that I was just starving myself. Like, would you just order something greasy, like you just trying to make me feel like shit because I'm eating a cheeseburger? Like,
yeah, no, I remember that.
Really don't care what you're eating. I'm just tired of looking like shit and feeling like shit, so I'm eating that shit. You eat whatever you want, bro.
But they had a problem with what you were eating, and I don't understand that. Like,
I was starving myself. Obviously, I'm eating rabbit food because I'm eating salad, so I'm hearing that every fucking day. Why don't you just have a fucking cheeseburger? You look skinny. Because I used to be overweight. I don't want to be there anymore. I'm at a point in my life where this is where I'm happy, and people just couldn't understand. So what are you trying to say? I'm overweight? No, motherfucker. You brought this up. What are you talking about? I was just perfectly fine having my Parmesan crisps and my steak salad with, balsamic vinaigrette, and you're like, oh, I'm bad because I'm eating a double cheeseburger, you know? And the point of that is I think people project that. Exactly, they project their insecurities on other people because you said it, it needs company.
Welcome to the Lionz Den, episode 36. My name's Eddy.
And this is Daryl.
I'm Brad.
And this is Alex.
Any of our YouTube watchers, hopefully you see me. I am in camouflage, but I am here. Today we're going to talk about probably one of the harder lessons I had to learn in life. And I mean, the gist of it is, are you a gateway for the people in your life, or are you a wall or an obstacle for the people in your life? We all know the saying, misery loves company. That shit's true. Really, 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 really true. And it could be anybody. It could be a parent. It could be your brother. It could be your best friend. It could be girlfriend, boyfriend. It took me a real long time to understand that it's not malicious intent. It's just kind of there. When people are unhappy, they kind of want to drag you down with them. So I kind of want to talk about that today because you, as a person, which side are you what side of that are you on? I would see it a lot with drinking, so I don't drink. And people would get real emotional about it. So, hey, do you want a beer? No, I don't drink. Why not? What are you trying to say? I'm less of a person because I drink. I'm like, well, I didn't say shit. I just said I don't want a beer, man.
I've seen that. I've seen that too.
It ain't that serious. What are you getting all worked up about? Well, I don't know. I just feel like you think you're better than me. I said, I don't think now, actually, after this conversation, I am starting to think that because what the hell do you got going on?
Right.
You'll see this manifest in a lot of ways, both for yourself and others. So, a big reason I have this conversation is, one, where do you sit with that? And then the people that are important to you in your life, where do they sit with that? What are they being in your life? Because, again, sometimes it's very obvious, like that example I just used. Sometimes it can be very subtle. Daryl and I had a recent circumstance where, Daryl and I worked together. He had an opportunity to go to something that works better for him, more financial opportunity for him. It's not something like he was dying to do, but had to do it. As a friend, selfishly, Daryl and I are bullshitting every day. We had great conversations. I'm going to miss that. But you got to be a friend and say, okay, well, hey, if that's going to be better for you, especially when something's financial, hey, brother, you got to do what's best for you. I completely understand that. Things like that. People can guilt you with crap like that. They can mess with you with stuff like that. Like I said, a relationship, friends, they want you hanging out with their friends because they're needy and now you're not with them and they're all alone. And so, you're going to leave me alone. They'll guilt trip you. Drinking, deviant behavior. If you're the one that likes to sleep around and the other one's not, what's the big deal? Just come with me and meet this friend and, blah, blah, blah. You'll see this manifest in a lot of different ways.
You can, yeah.
And again, it could be really hurtful because you're like, hey, I thought this person was somebody that cared about me. How would they do that? So I kind of want to talk about that. You know, I don't know where you stand with that, Daryl.
No, I mean, you hit it on the head. Like, the difference I noticed with me swapping jobs is, like, so we still game together. Obviously still do the podcast together and everything like that. I didn't see that as a friendship change in any way. I know you didn't either. But it's other people who would look at that like that. And, like, you know, what is it about me that, you know, is causing this? And it's nothing in that relation. But I've seen that in other scenarios too.
For sure.
Like when I joined the Army, people thought I was going to come back and I was going to be way, way different, you know, from movies, books, TV shows, and what they understand as, you know, what soldiers are like. When I come home on leave, I'm the same person. My job is just different. My lifestyle is a little bit different because it is in line with the job, you know, of being enlisted. But I'm still the same person. You know, where that kind of came into play with me, though, is that thanks to my upbringing, I knew who I was when I joined.
Right.
And so when joining the Army didn't change me too much. It just changed things I did within my lifestyle. You know, I still question stuff like you know, that they told me when I was joining. I don't know about that, but it's still a job I wanted to do. So I've seen that manifest in several ways, and I think the way to get around that is to be a true friend. Because if you're somebody's friend regardless of what they do, where they work. I see the same thing with what you said about drinking. So I drink, but I stopped drinking in the winter. One, for fitness reasons, mostly for fitness reasons. And because I'm less active in the winter. You know, I'm not outside doing as much stuff as I do in the spring and summer and the fall. So I noticed a lot of people pack on pounds because they're packing on calories in the winter because they're not doing the same shit they're doing.
Right.
So once I realized that, I'm like, well, I'll just stop drinking. I don't need to drink to have a good time. Right. So I'll stop drinking. Friends that we know got mad at me. Oh, this dude don't want to fucking have a drink. Like, I'm still hanging out. I'm literally right here hanging out with you.
I didn't go anywhere.
Right. Why does it matter that this is water or this is Sprite? I don't understand. Right. Like the issue. Well, I wanted to buy you a drink. Well, buy me a Sprite. Right. It's cheaper, and that's what I want to drink. So what is the problem? So I've seen that where people depend, like, they feel like, oh, he thinks he's better than me because he's not drinking until April. Well, no, I just think, for me, I don't want to put on calories. It might, your physiology might not be like that. Like, the way you put on pounds and put on calories might not be like that for you. But for me, it is. So I do that. But I have seen where people have a problem with it.
Yeah, they get emotional.
Yeah.
It's funny, both of you guys talk about it because I don't drink anymore, and I drank a lot. You know, like I would go out as a social drinker, so like it was always like Friday night, let's go, we're going out, we're going to drink, and like I don't anymore. But you do see that people are kind of like, is there something wrong with you? Like, what, you can't? Like, you have a problem? Like, no, it just doesn't.
Yeah, are you an alcoholic?
Yeah, it just doesn't. And yeah, I mean that's kind of the first like,
first like, 2 or 3 questions.
Right? Yeah, like no, I just like it doesn't suit me at all. And oddly enough, like on our honeymoon, I was like, well, I'm in Margaritaville. I got to have a margarita. And I felt like such shit after like 1 month. I was like, why? Like, what is the point of this? This is so dumb. But I do find that people ask all the time, like when you're like, I don't like, give me a kitty cocktail. I have kitty cocktails all day.
Delicious.
They're
really good.
Yeah. They're so good. And I'm 6'3" and tattooed and large and bearded. And, you know, I'll go to the bar, be like, I need a kitty cocktail. And they like blink at me. And it's great. And they're tasty.
Keep it at the house.
And and also then like people think I have some sort of like actual drink in my hand, so they kind of tend to
leave you alone. Right.
But anyway, back to the topic at hand. I hung out with a lot of people that were not, that probably didn't have my best intentions in mind. They had their best intentions in mind. And I was very distracted because of what was going on in my life, and it just seemed, you know, well, this was a good fit. The older I've gotten, I've learned quality over quantity, and I just hang around with people that I want to hang around with, people that I feel would treat me the same as I would treat them. And it took a while for me to kind of learn that and learn that that's what's really important. And having a very small, close-knit circle is better than having like a massive group of people. I'm far better off now than I was then.
Yeah, I mean, that's why because I remember very specifically with you and talking about it because I was just like, wait, what? I don't see the totally different personalities.
Right.
What the hell's going on there? And, you kind of see it. And I always find it interesting because, again, sometimes it is malicious. I mean, sometimes that person's very manipulative. They know exactly what they're doing. More often than not, it's not. They just don't want to deal with the guilt of whatever they got going.
They're doing, yeah.
And you're kind of a reminder of that. I don't know, for you, Alex.
For me, I went through that a lot. Not a huge drinker. I will drink. It's not that I don't drink. If I go out, I will. I don't do it very often. Don't really drink at the house a ton. Actually, my ma got us sweets. Thank you, Ma. But it's a sweet, like, I think they're called like Bartesians. And you put it on your counter. That, yeah. It's like a Keurig, but you put a little pod in there.
Yep.
I've only had a couple of them because, like I said, I'm not a big drinker, let alone an at-home drinker. But it's pretty cool. Walk in and take like a whiskey sour or something and click it in there. But anyway, for me, I'm not a big drinker, so it's food, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I experienced that a ton when I'd go through weight loss. Like, I would do my intermittent fasting. And
I remember that.
For me, so I'm at a point now, I'm a year and a half, 2 years outside of this. So, I can order the regular foods and stuff. I've caught my metabolism back up. My diet's back to a point where I'm good. But for, the first 8 months, it was a very regimented, strict diet. Every day I was eating whatever I came up with, what I thought was healthier than what it was, which was just talking to you, yogurt, salad, fruit, like Parmesan crisps and things like that. Where I'm going with it is everybody was convinced that I was just starving myself. Like, would you just order something greasy? Like you just trying to make me feel like shit because I'm eating a cheeseburger? No,
I remember that.
Really don't care what you're eating. I'm just tired of looking like shit and feeling like shit, so I'm eating that shit. You eat whatever you want, bro.
But they had a problem with what you were eating, and I don't understand that.
I was starving myself. Obviously, I'm eating rabbit food because I'm eating salad, so I'm hearing that every fucking day. Why don't you just have a fucking cheeseburger? You look skinny. Because I used to be overweight. I don't want to be there anymore. I'm at a point in my life where this is where I'm happy, and people just couldn't understand. So what are you trying to say? I'm overweight? No, motherfucker. You brought this up. What are you talking about? I was just perfectly fine having my Parmesan crisps and my steak salad with, balsamic vinaigrette, and you're like, oh, I'm bad because I'm eating a double cheeseburger, And the point of that is I think people project that.
Exactly
they project their insecurities on other people because you said it, it needs company. You need that. You need to have company within misery. So if somebody's unhappy and they see you making a positive change, if they're not in the point in their life when they could do that, whether it be drinking, eating, health, friends, family, relationships, jealousy, I think, comes out. And people start coming up with why you're doing with what you're doing instead of why you're actually doing, right?
No,
they come up
exactly
with their perceptions. So that'd probably be my biggest. I mean, I talked to all you guys when I was going through that. So, I mean, something.
No, I mean, projection is really the key word there. I mean, people project their shit onto you because when you're no longer doing it, you have that self-reflection. And, with faith, that's really the whole point of it. I mean, being a good Christian isn't about talking it and letting the whole world know I'm this and this and you should believe this or that. It's that action because the action has all the power. I think right now we're polar opposite. It's a lot of talk and not a lot of action, which then leads to a bunch of confusion because they're like, wait a second, I thought you're supposed to be the loving ones and the compassionate ones and the understanding ones. I'm not seeing a whole lot of that. It's the action that speaks the volume because anytime you see it, and we all experience it might be music, might be a movie Daryl and I are talking about, or something you've seen, or a relationship between two people that you're like, wow, those people look really happy, or you're touched by it. It's really that action that makes that self-reflection because you see it and you covet it. So, man, I would love to have a friend like those two guys. What's up with my friends? So now you start having that inner dialogue that we kind of talked about in the last podcast. Coward dies 1,000 times, a brave man but once. And a lot of times people don't want to deal with the demons that come up with that.
No.
You know, they don't want to have to start looking around and realizing that your friends aren't quite the friends they thought they were. A big one I would say with that is loneliness. One thing I'm a little different. I was an only child. So I didn't have brothers, I didn't have sisters. I was by myself a lot. I mean, I had a big family with very close cousins I looked at as brothers and sisters. But, you know, by and large, I was by myself a lot. So I really never had a problem with it. Not to say I never got lonely, but it wasn't a real big issue for me. Loneliness is a mother for a lot of people. People will really subject themselves to a lot of shit to not be lonely.
Yes, yeah. I know a few people like that. And then I don't judge them either because I understand how important that can be for somebody. Mm-hmm. But a lot of unhealthy habits can come from that.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah, there was a time, you know, for me when I was hanging around people that probably, you know, like I said, didn't really have my best interest in mind. For me, it was really just more like I didn't want to be by myself. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to, you know, just be sitting in my house by myself. So going and doing something with these people was like super beneficial to me because it got me out of the house. So that was where the justification came in. But like we talked about, like with that moral compass, like there were things that were going on and you're just kind of like, fuck, this isn't who I am.
Right.
You know? But you also kind of can oddly justify stuff and selfishly like, well, this isn't who I am, but this beats sitting at home, you know? But it took me, you know, a bit to kind of learn like this just isn't good. Mm-hmm. And once you kind of break that cycle and realize like who your true friends are and who you should associate yourself with, it makes all the difference in the world. Mm-hmm. It really does.
No, I think you just hit on the head. You know, when you're in a situation like that, it becomes very transactional. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm compromising this, but I'm getting this. And, you know, that the problem with that is that bar always changes. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not like it just stays that same way where, you know, you're both agreed and that bar always gets pushed because there's not real genuineness in that. And so somebody always feels like the odd man out. Mm-hmm. And the problem is with your moral compass, the more, and again, we talked about this a lot, like a lot of people that I talk to with, you know, and it's going to sound rough, it's just a reality. A lot of people with low self-esteem that I talk to, yeah. Why wouldn't you? You do this, you do that, you've done this, you've done that, you've hurt this person, you've hurt that person. Why would you feel good about yourself? You know, you should have shitty self-esteem. You know, that's, again, our moral compass. That's why we're blessed with that by God. Mm-hmm. That's why we're blessed with the conscious. That's God talking to us. The thing there is, the beauty of it is you could change that right now as we speak.
In the moment.
Yep. Say, you know what? I'm not doing that anymore. I don't want to be this person anymore. I don't want to feel like this anymore. So I'm going to start doing the right action. I'm going to start listening to my inner conscious. You know, you could choose to change that at any given time. You know, a lot of people act like it never goes away. So whatever your transgressions are, they're stuck to you for the rest of your life, and they're just not. I mean, those promises were made by God. You make it known, and you're forgiven. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people will get stuck in that I'm a shitty person, I've done this, I've done that. And they'll find themselves hanging with people that are similar. Because, I can't really hang out with Brad because Brad's too good for me. We talked about dating and the apps and before.
And he doesn't drink.
Yeah, so
no fun.
I can't hang out with him because, you know, he's too good for me. I mean, for you in dating, you were getting a lot of that.
Oh, yeah.
And that always amazed me that somebody could feel that way about. Like, I've never, and obviously I might have some arrogance, I've never felt that way about anybody. I've never been like...
It is shock to no one at this table.
You know, like, that person's just too good for me. Mm-hmm. Now, what I want to be clear, it's not me. It's not my personality. It's not my appearance. Not any of those things. I'm created by God. You're created by God. Right. So I wasn't created by God C, and you were created by God A. So I'm inferior to you some way. We're both the same creator. So there's people that are more evolved than I was.
Well, they're just at different points.
Or at different points where I could say, hey, man, you're at a different juncture in your life than I am, and I can't wait to get to where you're at, but I'm not there. That's far different than you're better than me.
Right.
That's a tough thing because if I can say you're better than me, then already that's a self-reflection of I need to get my shit together. Because where am I at where I have to say that? But, what I've noticed is...
It's a self-esteem thing, too.
Yes, it's really what it comes down to. I mean, you're 100% right, is that self-esteem thing. And when we talk about self-esteem a lot, again, it just really comes down to understanding that we're all made by the same person. So, everybody at this table, everybody listening, everybody watching has the same potential as anybody else out there to be great, and you have the same potential to be a turd. We both have those. Everybody has those abilities. It's a constant choice in your life of where you want to lie with that. And within context of this conversation, who the people that one thing I argue with my mom all the time about was, she'd always say, you're not who you hang out with. Bullshit. Because you are. Because even if you're not, you are.
Right now you are.
As far as the perception.
Association.
How people see. Exactly. You have that guilt by association. Yes. And, you have to ask yourself, do I want that? Do I want people seeing me like that because of X, Y, Z person? And we've all guilty at this table. We've had friends that were shady as shit or associates that were, in some grimy stuff. You have to be able to acknowledge that. I can't say, well, Joey, who's my best friend, is a mass murderer, but I'm not. So you can't judge me based on Joey. He's a completely different guy than I. Well, no, that's your friend. So on some level, you're okaying that, kind of in your situation back then, you knew very well there was stuff that was going on that was making you uncomfortable. But you justify it because, hey, it's not my situation. It's not my problem. What they're doing, that's between them. It's not my place, whatever. And we constantly find ourselves doing that. And what I really want to touch on is that's the devil's work.
Right.
I mean, that's exactly to a T how the devil operates. He makes you feel like everything you're doing is perfectly fine and you're completely justified in doing it and there's nothing wrong with it. And so that's the real title of this is, are you doing the devil's work? Are you creating a window for somebody or a door for somebody, or are you creating obstacles?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of obstacles that are created with our society today based off of what we talked about earlier with projection. So something I disagree with is that people's triggers need to be respected by everybody. I don't believe that. I think so if I have something that triggers any kind of bad memory, anxiety, depression, whatever it is, it's my responsibility not to engage in those triggers, right? I don't think it's society's, because then I become an obstacle for people around me. Because if I don't drink, none of you guys can drink. Because if you drink, it's going to trigger me I want to have a drink now. So you can't have shit.
Right.
Because I don't want to break my promise that I made to myself. Just don't fucking break it. It's not my problem. Or don't light fireworks because my brother, he was blown up and he doesn't like the sound of fireworks. What?
Right.
What are you talking about? So he can't watch movies with explosions now?
Right.
Fireworks sound nothing like explosions in real life. So I think when you said the topic of this, that's one of the things that jumped up is we are projecting a lot as a society, our issues and triggers on everybody else to affect how they move around us. But you need to affect how you move around wherever you're at, the space you're in, to protect yourself if you have things that trigger you, because nobody knows what triggers everybody that's around us. You don't know what triggers your neighbors. Like I got Gonzo's big. He's a big cane corso. Some people have like deathly fears of dogs. He won't do anything to anybody. Like I can stick my whole fist in his mouth. He just looks at me like, "What are you doing?" But if somebody was like, if somebody comes over, they're like, "Oh, you got to put your dog up because I'm scared of dogs." No. You can stand outside.
My dog lives.
This is his house. So
You're a guest.
Listening to that, I'm thinking like it's a lot of ways that we make ourselves obstacles, or people make themselves obstacles, and it's not like being helpful to anybody. It's not even being helpful to themselves because they're still going in places where they probably shouldn't be, or doing things they probably shouldn't be doing based on their fears, triggers, or issues. But then they project it on everybody else. So it's just another thing that I kind of picked up when we went around the table, off the title, and then when we went around the table as well.
Yeah. Well, I think people tend to, maybe they're out doing stuff they shouldn't be doing, or they're feeling a type of way or some sort of guilt, and then I'm going to combat that guilt by like, hey, village of whatever, don't shoot off fireworks because it may affect Timmy over here. And, like it's this weird, crazy cycle of, I'm not going to deal with my own personal issues. I'm going to try and do like a air quote good deed in the sense of project, so I get kind of to some degree what you're saying there. But I think kind of going back to, at least for me, there was a time when I was much, much younger and I was involved with a lot of like some motorcycle club stuff and doing a lot of things that I shouldn't be doing. It becomes very normal. And like you talked about where the devil's work is, it's like, well, we're all doing this.
Right.
If I'm not here, somebody's going to be in my place. It's going to happen regardless, so I might as well.
Might as well be me.
Might as well be me. This is lots of fun. But then you learn, you're like, man, this really isn't. And you come to that crossroads, and I think all of us at some point in life have been either doing something or involved with somebody, and you come to that crossroads where you're your own personal like roadblock, and you kind of have to be that doorway or that window and be like, you know what, if I continue down this path, morally, I know this is not going to end well for me. I need to go this direction, and I did, and I think everybody comes to that. So not only can you be that roadblock or doorway for a friend or relative or family member, but also personally you can do that.
Definitely. So, I mean, you both bring up real good points. I mean, especially with the trigger, because even now, like when I'm on YouTube or I'm watching something, there's been quite a few celebrities recently that got banged up because they didn't give trigger warnings and all that. In talking about that stuff, what we're really here, I firmly believe we're here to evolve. We're here to become more evolved human beings. And if there's something that has happened in your life that, is jarring for you, that's something you have to work through. And the reality is we're never going to get to a point in life that those things aren't going to happen. It's going to happen. You see a lot with eating disorders. You have an eating disorder and somebody's eating a Big Mac and, oh, wait, you should have gave me a warning on that. Well, there's a lot of people out there eating Big Macs. I get it. It triggers you and you want to eat it and you can't because then you're going to want to do whatever with it. But that's just the reality of it. Now, that being said, we could get to a point where we're respectful, where you tell me, man, every time you eat a Big Mac makes me want one. That's perfectly fine. Hey, man, I get that. Now, if I'm like, hey, you can't have this Big Mac. You'll never get this. La, 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 la. Put it in your face. Here, smell it. That's where you become an asshole. And there's a big distance between those two.
It is.
If you're trying to purposely engage, gay rights for actually all of us at this table. It wasn't that long ago, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, you wouldn't see a gay couple. And it's something I hear from older people all the time. They get so upset. Actually, I was just literally having a conversation with somebody about it. And they're like, I can't change the station without seeing two guys kissing. And I'm like, who cares?
Who gives a shit?
Who cares? Change the channel. Turn the other way.
Yeah, right. You know what they're not trying to do? They're not trying to kiss your crotchety old ass. Move on.
Exactly.
And, You know, and that's a thing where that political correctness, the trigger stuff, where that was somewhere where it was extremely beneficial.
Right.
You know, we were uptight about it. We were ridiculous about it. I remember, and you guys will probably all remember this, 'cause this would have been, I don't know, maybe Clinton, debates about if gay couples get married, people are going to see it and people are going to become gay.
Yeah.
Like we thought it was like a disease where, oh my God, there's gay, now I'm gay.
Right.
I remember like watching a literal debate about it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we were nuts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now we're to a point where it's way more accepted. Obviously, we recognize it as equal marriage and all these things, which is fantastic. So you always want that evolution, but that evolution has to have that resistance. And that's kind of what we were talking about with, are you being a window or an obstacle? Because on that side with the trigger, you're just as, or that person that, hey, you can't do any of this stuff because if you do, you're going to trigger this person, or same thing, you're stopping that person from that growth. Now, again, nobody at this table saying don't be respectful of what's going on. Of course you should be. So if you're that person that is triggered by fireworks, you know, it doesn't mean shut your fireworks down. What it means is don't light a firecracker and throw it in their face.
Exactly.
Kind of like the burger type thing.
Right.
You know, and there's a big difference between there. And that person who's activated by that also has to understand that.
They do. I think I'm not against triggers. I want to go back and say that. Some things do need to have a trigger warning on there. But the practicality of it for me is like, if I'm about to watch a video or something and it has extremely fast and bright light sequences, and it might want to trigger me that I might have a epileptic seizure or something. I appreciate that. I mean, I'm not epileptic, but somebody might be. Before you click play, wait a second, this is going to have some fast moving lights and things like that. So you're not seized up in your room or wherever you're at watching a video. So I believe in that. But it's not saying you can't make this video with lights.
Right.
Because there's people out here who have seizures.
Right.
You know, it's saying this is the type of video that has that, so it might not be the video
or
for you.
Trigger warning, it's my birthday, you're going to see a cake. So anyone who has an eating disorder, please stop watching.
Or you come in and you say, look, I'm not going to show anybody my bag.
I mean, we're at that point with this shit.
There is a Big Mac in here. I'm not going to show you it. So if you're in the lunchroom, can you please exit? Like, no, you don't.
Right.
This is where we're going.
I just want to eat my cheeseburger. You know?
Yeah. I just want to go sit down, eat.
Yeah. I mean, human interaction, human conversation, if you actually just use it for what it is very simple. You have a conversation, and then you have a series of choices that follow after that. So if you have an honest conversation with somebody, let's say it's about something that you have an eating disorder, you want to eat a Big Mac. Hey, did you know I had an eating disorder? No, I didn't. Now, if that's somebody you want to hang out with and you're on the other side of that, you take the conscious decision of maybe I'm not going to eat the Big Mac in front of somebody. And if you're in there, you have that ability. Now, the difference is the ignorance of the people that think you should already know that I have an eating disorder. And if you have an eating disorder, there's nothing wrong with that in the sense of that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It's something you're working through. But how the hell can you project on, Daryl, you should have known? Why? Who the hell are you? Why would I know you have an eating disorder? You know, I mean, people forget because we talked about it in the last podcast with dating apps. Everything's so digital. It's at our fingertips. I feel as if I could look at you and I could make an assumption of who you are, what you're about, who you believe in, and what you're okay with. And I just don't want to spend the time to get to know you. So because I don't spend the time to get to know you, the choices I choose to make about you are on perceptions and not your true reality.
Right.
You know, I mean, I think it's very simple. Have a conversation about whatever it is. Daryl, you know, if you eat that Big Mac, it really tempts me to eat that Big Mac. You have one of two choices. Don't watch me eat my fucking Big Mac, or, hey, I'm going to make a conscious decision not to do that. Neither one of those make you a bad person. No. It's never personal. It's just we can't seem to have an honest conversation about what we truly want and how we feel. You know, and I think that's where the struggle is.
I actually saw that with nut allergies, too. My sisters have nut allergies. And one of them's 21 and the other's 16. And we never asked, like, the school, like, hey, these girls have nut allergies. Can you remove all nuts from any kind of food, potlucks, lunch, and menu? Because I don't want my sisters to die. My daughter, you know, we never did that. My sisters know they have nut allergies.
Right.
Don't eat nuts.
So they don't eat nuts. It's from elementary on up.
I remember making my daughter like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. She's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm making your lunch for school." She's like, "I can't take peanut butter to school." I was like,
"Yeah, they can't. They cannot take peanut butter."
She's like, "Yeah, I can't because people have nut allergies." I was like, "Well, but this is not for you.
Yeah,
this isn't for them.
You can't eat a peanut butter jelly sandwich at school because other kids have nut allergies.
Because other kids have nut allergies. Yeah.
My younger nieces, nephews, my daughter, she can't take that.
So I mean, I get it. I get why. I mean, it's just unfortunate that us as a society aren't. Well, because people aren't intelligent enough to
what
just
I'm
have
saying
it.
Is
you can't go to
it's
school.
Like the nut.
Gonna jump off the sandwich and jump on Brad's face. I don't know.
I can. So my sisters are like definitely allergic to it, and I can eat a peanut butter sandwich right here, a Reese's right here. Now, if it's really bad, they might get a little scratchy feeling, but it's not gonna bother them unless like I eat it and then I kiss them, which actually happened when she was little.
Right.
When I came home from North Carolina one time, as soon as I got in the house, I remember I was maybe an hour outside of my mom's house, stopped, got some gas, had a Reese's. Came in, everybody hugged and kissed me and stuff. I kissed my little sister on her cheek. I've been home for like 15 minutes, and my sister's face was like,
oh, shit.
Like unrecognizably swollen.
Yeah.
And she came upstairs, and we were like, what the? And I'm like, oh my God, I had a Reese's an hour ago. And so we had to give her an EpiPen, and we still take her to the emergency room, and they just make sure everything's, her throat's not swelling. Sure. And then, after that, we were like, nobody can have Reese's. We just have to really be conscious of it. Sure. And I forgot I'm an hour out. I don't live up here, so I hadn't think about it then. But then we saw, at that point, so it can be, I get a little bit why they don't have it in school. Because there's too many kids to kind of manage what's going on with that.
It makes sense. Yeah. But it is kind of
But it is also on...
Well, that's also because we live in a society where people don't just set that expectation of, hey, you got a peanut allergy, little Timmy. You go to school and you have a peanut, you're going to die.
Right. Yes.
Well, how do I know if there's peanuts in that food? So when you walk up to the lunch line and they're about to scoop something into your food, excuse me, does this have peanuts in it? Because if it does, I'm going to die.
Or do that.
That's your job.
So my sister's doctor taught them to just do a surface test. Genius. So any meal you go, especially if they go eat PF Chang, any kind of Asian food, there's a lot of peanuts in there. Yeah. Take it and do this. Genius. And then wait a few minutes. You'll know. It's not going to be the same reaction as if you ingested it. Right. But it's going to be an irritation, even if it's like a little tingle. Right. And then there's if you get any kind of little tingle, don't mess with it.
It's genius.
It's that simple.
Right.
Genius.
Does this have peanuts in there? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the point of all this is, again, are you being a door or are you being an obstacle for people? And you should certainly be respectful and compassionate and understanding. But that doesn't mean that it has to be completely stopping evolution entirely, and we're in this utopian world where nobody's going to say anything to hurt each other's feelings. And the reality of that, we see the results of that. Our political crisis is the epitome of that. That conversation that from the friend of I can't watch TV was seeing what that really is. In essence, he really doesn't give a shit, but he's not dumb either. He's aware that there's a push for that for political correctness. So people are saying, hey, this is stupid, all this stuff, and really pushing. There is an agenda there. You have to be able to say, hey, there's a lot that's good with that. Because that's really what we're missing with this is having those two conversations. To Daryl's point, I mean, when I first stopped drinking when I was real young, I wouldn't date girls that drank. My old man's a drunk. That's not fun. I don't want to hang out with you if you're drunk. You can do whatever the hell you want when you're not with me, but if you're with me, you're not drinking. Now, I didn't go to the club and say, oh, everybody stop the music. Eddy's here. There'll be no more drinking allowed in here anymore because it triggers me and my alcoholic father or any of that. I understood if that bothers me that much, a nightclub's probably not the best place for me to be. There always has to be that understanding. But when you're looking at the people that are around you, and really most importantly, what you're doing to other people, what kind of friend are you? What kind of mentor are you? What kind of leader are you? For me, I was polar opposite. So if I was doing something bad, honestly, I don't want anybody knowing about it. I don't want anybody with me. I sure in hell didn't want to bring any friend with me. If I'm doing dirt on my own. Because I didn't want that on somebody else. If that's a decision I'm making, I'm going to own that decision.
Right.
The last thing in the world I would want to do is bring somebody in that. In the club, most fights I got into were somebody was getting picked on and didn't want to fight, and so I jumped in to stick up for that person. Because to me, if you're that guy, don't want to hurt somebody, God bless you. You know, your hands are clean. You have that innocence. I hope you always stay like that. I hope you never have to fight.
Yeah, I got you.
Right. Why should you have to fight? Because this guy's an asshole.
Right.
So
I've totally been opposite of that.
to your point of that, I agree. It's different, like when you're dating somebody. So I don't smoke. I mean, I smoke cigars, but I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't like smokers. As far as dating, I don't care what anybody does. If you want to smoke weed, you want to smoke cigarettes, I'm actually, I mean, not promoting it, but I'm 420 positive, you know. But I don't like Eddy. My grandma smoked when, still to this day. And when I was a kid, she used to come over and she used to kiss me. Cheeks, my lips, and it smelled like Coos. It tastes like Coos. And I felt like Forrest Gump. I'm like, she tastes like cigarettes. So I don't like it. So I'm not going to tell somebody that they can't smoke around me. But I don't want to kiss somebody, a woman that's been smoking. And the same thing with drinking. It's different if you like, I don't want to date a woman that drinks a lot or that has to drink when she goes out, because you're probably going to kiss her at some point and you don't drink. And you're probably going to taste it and you don't want to taste it. So I don't feel like that's a like inconvenience. That's being open and upfront with something that you don't want to have in your life.
For sure.
So I agree with you on that, because it's the same for me with smoking. Like, a lady smokes cigarettes, it's just I lose a bit of interest, because now I'm like, I don't want to kiss her anymore.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I would get a lot of shit for that. It would be like, oh,
you're controlling.
Exactly. Who are you to tell me I can't drink? I'm your boyfriend. So you want to be with somebody, go with that. Dude, I don't care. We don't need to be together. There's just plenty of other girls out there, so go do you. You just ain't gonna do it with me.
Right.
You know, and again, I think, and even that's really what bothered me. So that person that was like, you know, no, I don't have any problem with that. If that bothers you, I'm cool with that. That's the exact person, when they drink, never bothered me. Yeah. Because I knew that there wasn't an issue there. They were completely casual drinkers. It wasn't going to be an issue. It's as soon as that person made a big deal about it, that made me like, oh, what's really going on with you? Why would that be such a big deal? So if I am interested in you and have a strong interest in you, even further, if I love you and you're like, hey, Eddy, you know, my father died from drinking a Coca-Cola. I watched him die in front of me. It kind of upsets me when I see it. I'm not doing it. I could drink Coca-Colas when I get home. It's your company is more important to me than that instance. But it's showing that respect, that understanding, because again, like what we're talking about, if it's that big of a deal, what's really going on? So if it's, hey, Brad, come out with me. I want to go meet this girl, and she's got a friend with you, and, you know, I don't really want to go. And I'm egging you on and calling you names or whatever. What am I really up to?
Personal gain.
For sure. And what am I saying about you and who you are and your boundaries? That's not my thing, man. I'm not a hit it and quit it type of guy. I'm looking for something. Why am I trying to drag you in that? And again, I think a lot of times we put ourselves in those situations and we're really not asking those questions.
I think it comes down to talking about is communication. Like all this kind of is it's this avenue for communication. So if you're, you know, if you are in a friend group where people are kind of blocking you or pushing you down a path you don't want to go down, like stop and kind of ask that question. Well, what, you know, why do you want me to do this? What's the reality? Like you said, what is the, you know, and it's that personal gain, you know, usually, you know, there's that other agenda. And then you can kind of start to realize, well, these people have their own agenda. It's not an agenda where we grow as friends together. I have a couple friends. They're very similar to myself and my wife, and they own a small business, and they're very driven people and enjoy very much their company because the way I can best explain it is like if you want to be a good basketball player, you don't play opponents that are lesser than your level. You want to play against people that are, have a much greater talent than you. That's how you get better. And I was kind of explaining that to them. I was like, it's great to kind of talk business with them because they're at a different level than I'm at, and it makes me kind of better and more achieved. But it's all brought on through communication. And then when we talk about it, they're not roadblocks. They're opening windows of like, hey, that's cool. You know what? Let me introduce you to this person.
Sure.
So it all starts with that communication, and then kind of realizing what people around you have, what their goals are for you, and then kind of go from there.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, completely agree. I don't know how you follow that. I mean, they hit it on the head,
Yeah, and and again, the whole point of this is actually all these podcasts are always about self-introspection, taking a look at yourself, taking a look at the people around you. Are you being a gateway or obstacle for other people's growth? And strangers, more importantly, your friends, the people that you're close to, family, whatever. It's an important question to ask because, if you are that obstacle, you're engaging in the devil's work.
Yeah.
I mean, all you're doing is helping that cause. Is that the person you want to be?
Right.
And if the answer to that is yes, then go for it. You do you, and deal with the consequences of that. My feeling is more often than not, most people, that's not where they want to be at.
No, I agree. And to that, are you a gateway or obstacle? It's just, I put that as, am I being a good person?
Mm-hmm. No, 100%.
If I have any kind of interaction with anybody and it's not received well or it's received well, whatever the case is, a question that I've asked myself several times in my life and I will continue to ask myself is, am I a good person? Am I currently being a good person? And as long as that answer is yes, then I'm fine.
Absolutely. And you're right. I mean, I think that is the most important question. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in again, and we'll catch you on the next one. Please share, like, subscribe.
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.